Hello, Brad. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's fantastic to have you on to chat. Firstly, how are you?
Morning, Baker. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see another local lads trying to make something of themselves. So I wanted to come on here, and I was quite excited when you actually messaged me. But no, I'm fantastic. I am really good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And I've said to you off camera, I appreciate your time a lot. I'm really looking forward to this episode. But where I'm going to start, Brad, is where I'd usually start with all of my guests. I wanted to ask. I usually like to go back to when you were younger and ask how did you get involved with the profession that you're in. But when reading about you, I'm aware that you didn't really start business until a couple of years back.
So you don't the media and the press don't pick up on everything. They only know what you tell them. And I'm going to let you in today. You're going to be in for a bit of a treat because I'm going to strip it right back and tell you where it all really began. So let's go back to the younger years then. So I suppose this is where you want me to start. It very much started when I was in school. So when I was at school, there was a guy who had he was quite a naughty lad at school, and he wasn't allowed in the dining hall. Every day at school, I used to take my pack lunch to school, and he used to offer me money for my pack lunch. So what I would do, I sold my pack lunch to this guy once. I thought, hang on, I've got actually enough money to go in the dining hall and just get a school dinner. So I'd go in, buy a school dinner, have a bit of change, and just saved it up. So every day I'd go in, sell him a pack lunch, and eventually I'd gone in and I thought, well, if he's going to buy my pack lunch, I wonder if I can take something else. So I started taking in cans of Coca-Cola. I would do Kit Kats, Mars bars, you name it. My backpack would be stocked up, and that's where it started, in the school playground. I was a young hustler trying to make a few quid. And yeah, the rest is history, really. My younger brother ended up coming to the same secondary school, and we pretty much took over the school, just selling Lucasades and crisps and chocolate bars. So yeah, but I've always kind of had that drive. I haven't been the sort of guy who has asked for quite a lot from his parents. You know, some of the kids when they're younger, they're always kind of have 20 quid here and 30 quid there. I wasn't like that. I didn't want to ask my parents. I wanted to make sure that I could make something for myself. And that's exactly what I did.
That's crazy. So sort of like when you look at it in a business perspective, the profit and money element sort of comes from just a simple story like that at school.
That's it. I mean, it's business is really simple if you strip everything back. You find a market, you find a product, you have a markup on your product, and at the end of it, fingers crossed, you come out with some profit. If you don't, you know, you move on to something else. I've had plenty of businesses in the past, which I've thought, well, come on, let's do a cash flow model. And this is going to be the next big thing. And you do your cash flow model and you go, actually, this doesn't work. I'm going to have to try and think of something else.
So of course that it all started from that little story in school. So did you go on to study business in school? I don't know if you attended college or university. I know some people go straight into work, but did you study business in school? And of course, raised in Teesside, we have to bring up on this podcast.
Yeah, so in school, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, really. My thoughts were, I used to race motorbikes. Well, in fact, I still race motorbikes. And being young, I used to have to rely on a friend's dad to take me out on a weekend to race the bike. And what my thoughts were if I get a trade where I'm almost a white van man, I'm going to go work for a company. They're going to give me a van, and I can go out on a weekend and race the bike. And that's where the construction side of things came from. So when I left school, I went and qualified as a plumber and a joiner. So really thoroughly enjoyed it. Every day was different. Managed to get a job with a bathroom fitter for a little while, and things didn't work out with his business. So I was then left with not really anywhere to go. So from there, I ended up going over to Middlesbrough College to study business. And
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
while I was at Middlesbrough College, I thought of an idea. I thought, hang on a minute, I've got an idea. I'm just sat in a lecture one day and I'm thinking, but this isn't for me. I hated school. I really, really hated school. I wasn't a naughty child, but I found it real difficult to kind of sit there and engage with the class and listen to what the teachers were saying. I'd just be daydreaming about something, and it's no different now. So I'm sat in a lecture and I'm thinking, hang on, I've got a real good idea here. I'm going to get myself into the solar panel industry. Coming from construction, I thought, well, it's the next step, and managed to find myself a job with a solar panel company. I was 18 years old, and at 18 years old, I was doing really well. And the work when I was working for this company, it said, we need you at work tomorrow rather than you go to college. I said, "Can't I need to go to college?" And they said, "Well, we're going to pay you. We're going to pay you a little bit more if you can go and do this job for us." I thought, hang on then. Well, let's have a go. So I went and done the job. Got paid a bit of extra. And it was like, right, come on, if we could do without you being at college now, we're going to pay you a bit more. And all in all, I started earning really good money at 18 years old. So that was obviously fantastic. I ended up setting myself up self-employed and started working for a few different solar panel companies because one just wasn't enough. I needed more. And from there is kind of where the business side of things came from. I was always trying to think of other little things that I could be doing. From being, I think I was 19 years old, I was in my mum's kitchen at one point, melting down candles and making scented candles, and ruined all the pots and pans in the kitchen just to try and turn a bit of profit. That's the type of guy I am. I buy things, sell things, make things. And this is where the little stigma of the Teesside Del Boy came from, because
the Teesside Del Boy. I know we'll come to the Apprentice later on, but mentioning Del Boy, you must have loved it when you went to see the play after winning one of the tasks.
Oh, honestly, when Lord Sugar had announced that we were going to go and see the Only Fools and Horses in concert, it was. I try to keep cool in the boardroom. You'll notice in there, I've got no facial expression. I just try and stand, let him say what he's saying, and I try to just keep my stuff together. But when he said that, I thought, oh my God, this is absolutely made for me. And the show itself was fantastic. Anyone who hasn't been, get yourself down to London and go and watch the show. It is absolutely fantastic. The characters are almost bang on.
And I remember there was that photo on your Instagram that sort of had you in the middle with Rodney and Del next to you.
Yeah, well, Rodney and Grandad. So I'm in the middle, Del Boy, with a transport behind. Yeah, it was. So as soon as it was announced, I was then known as the Teesside Del Boy. So I thought, before anyone else gets in, I'm going to have to make a joke of it myself. So yeah, that's where that came from.
But of course, you spoke about the type of person you were there, how you liked sort of making a profit on things, and how you sort of got into the construction business. Of course, because I was going to ask your business, Garden Rooms UK. I was going to ask how you sort of decided you wanted to be in that sort of field, but you've just explained a little bit about that there. But how did the path to founding the business eventually come about? Because like when did you sort of take a lead on being the main man in business?
So the way it came about was I was working for the solar panel company and everything was going really fantastic. And being a young, naive lad, thought that this was never ever going to run out, and thought, well, this is me for the rest of my life. So did what any young guy would do. He made the money, he spent the money, bought the fancy cars and the fancy clothes and the fancy holidays. And it started to slow down. And again, still naive at this point, thinking, well, it'll come back. It always does. And it didn't, because there was a change in government tariff a few years ago, which meant that having solar panels on your roof, you were no longer paid for, which then meant there was a massive downturn in custom, and I'm then out of a job. So managed to apply for a few different jobs and got a job with an estate agency. And I absolutely loved the job. I started working with this estate agency and was with them for nearly 4 years. I was then made redundant from that company, but I'd actually learned a little bit, and I thought, I've saved a little bit of money here, because last time when I lost my job, I didn't. And I started again. I thought, well, I've got a couple of weeks. I can live for a week or so, and I can find another job. Started applying for jobs, and nothing came in. I just had nothing back. So I thought, well, what can I do? What have I already got the skills for? And what line of work can I go in just to keep myself ticking over? So I ended up buying a little van, and I bought a little van and went out, started fitting kitchens and bathrooms, because that's what I was qualified in. Plumbing and joinery, it made perfect sense. Went out, started earning a little bit of money. I mean, it was slow, but I could pay my bills. And it just very slowly started to grow. And when I say slowly, it was a slow burner. Until one day I went to a client's house, and the client said, right, well, this is what we're looking for. We want a new kitchen fitting. We want the wall knocking out with a steel putting in so we can have a kitchen diner. We're going to take the doors out the back and put a set of bifolding doors in. Is that something you're able to do? I said, yeah, of course it is. You can do that, no problem. It just, for some reason in that moment, it just clicked. Why am I trying to do this on my own when I can get someone else to help me do it? I'll do the bits that I can. Someone else can do the bits that they can. We both get paid at the end of it. Customer's happy. Job's a good one. So that's what I did. I managed to get a builder in. Builder came in, took the wall down, put the steel in, put the windows in. I fitted the kitchen. Customer was over the moon. And then we start getting more jobs like that. And then more and more. As soon as you post a photograph online of something like that,
goes around.
Yeah, it goes around, and then you start getting your word of mouth customers. And from there, I thought, actually, I've got a bit of work on here, so I'm going to try and get like a bit of help, get a young apprentice, or get someone just who can help. And a mate of mine was also in the industry, and we started working together. So I thought, well, this is perfect. And then from there, I thought, hang on, I've got this working now. I can just employ someone else to go to work with the other lad, and I can get into the back office side of things and start working on the business rather than in the business. So start doing my own, built my own website and started doing my own ad campaigns, then started doing a load of research of different things that we could offer. And it just grew from there. I ended up with some builders working for me at the time, and the builders got sick of fitting kitchens. And it was one day that said, right, listen, Brad, we are builders. Why are you having us fit kitchens? It's not what we do. I said, so, well, tell me what you want to do. Tell me what you want to do, and I'll find you the work. I said, well, we build extensions. I would rather build an extension than go and fit a kitchen. So for me, happy days. Perfect. So that's what we did. We went and got the extension jobs, the garage conversion jobs, loft conversion jobs. And then that started to grow. And then obviously COVID hit. So when COVID hit, it was difficult and we struggled, and obviously didn't have a lot of work for the guys that I employed. So the guys that I employed obviously had to leave. They will find another jobs. And then I'm almost back to square one, where I've had a business, I've earned some money, I've had all these customers, and then boom, you've got nothing left. So I'm thinking, God, why has this happened to me again? What I'm going to have to do here is come up with some sort of solution. What's going to be the next big thing? And how can I get involved with the next big thing without the need for skilled labor, for one, and without the need for massive amounts of ad campaigns and all the rest of it, which is going to just eat into the pot. And the next big thing, which I identified was coming up, was these garden studios. So a garden room, everyone started working from home. Everyone was looking for an office from home. And the people who weren't looking for an office wanted a bar in the back garden because they thought,
a lot of people,
same 4 walls. I'll have a bar, I'll have a sitting room. People, unfortunately, had lost parents and they'd started to move the other parent back in. So for instance, we had a customer who had lost a mum and her dad wasn't coping on his own. So what they'd done is put him for planning permission for an annex in the back garden. So we built him a little granny flat in the garden with a kitchen, a bathroom, and the versatility of what we're offering here is amazing. So that's where Garden Rooms was born. What we do, we speak to a customer. The customer literally designs it with us on a 3D model on the website. That goes down to the factory. My factory manufactures it, gets delivered on site as a flat pack. It takes us 10 days to install with no need for skilled labor. So that's where the new company was born.
Of course, like you've just picked up on, COVID must have been a very hard time, but I think that's a fantastic story because I think it's a great business because in modern days now with houses and everything, people are always looking to build extension rooms and other rooms that they want in the garden and so on. But the versatility as well, I think is fantastic because like you've just picked up on, I guess you said it can be like a garden room, it could be a bar, it could be an office, it could be an extra room for someone to stay in, it could be anything. So I think that's fantastic.
That's it. I mean, I use we quite a lot, and we is me because
I do that as well.
I'm literally, I sit there and I sometimes have my own meetings. I'm like, right, what am I going to do today? How am I going to make this work? And you have a quick brainstorm with yourself. You think, right, I'm off now. I don't know what I'm doing. But no, what I'd done was I obviously try to capitalize on the broader market. Now, extensions are fantastic, but you've also got limitations with extensions because you then need to go through and apply for planning permission. Sometimes your planning permission is knocked back. You pay for an architect, you pay for your structural reports and all the rest of it to go with it. And it then gets really expensive. At the time, people needed space quick. So the way that I've designed these garden rooms, they come under permitted development rights, which means that you don't actually need to apply for planning permission usually. So as soon as a customer says, we need the space, I can say, no problem. We can have it manufactured in 8 weeks. So the factory will have it ready in 8 weeks. And from 8 weeks' time, it will be installed at your property in 10 days.
That's brilliant. I mean, it's so quick as well. And like you say, when people are in need of something quite quickly, to get that done within that space of time is brilliant. And do you, I think you just said this, but do you go and fit the rooms yourself as well?
So at the moment, I am. I'm trying at the moment to grow my social following with other like-minded tradespeople. So we start a job on Monday. So stay tuned from Monday on my socials, because I will be on site and I'll be installing a room over at a school in Hartlepool. So it's going to be quite a cool one. Again, just shows the versatility of what these rooms are like. This school has identified they need a new classroom, didn't have the time or the budget to get an extension. We're now building a new arts classroom in the same way that we create these garden spaces.
And that's fantastic. And where can you find your, if you want to give the name of your social medias as well, I'm aware, is it just Garden Rooms UK to follow on?
I would,
media platforms.
Yeah, I mean, on my social media, I would follow the Brad Johnson, which is my personal account. That's where most of the updates will come from. My business social media, I don't use too often because my customers don't use Instagram, and we're not on Facebook either. So, I would stay. I would. So yeah, what I would do is I would give myself a follow, the Brad Johnson, on Instagram. You can also give me a follow on TikTok, because I'll put quite a few bits on there. I'm trying to get into TikTok. Up until about a month ago, I thought it was just all silly dancing, but turns out it's not. So my eyes have been opened.
And what I wanted to move on now to was, of course, to be successful in business, it takes a successful entrepreneur. So that's Brad. What do you pride yourself on, skills wise and everything, to be successful in business?
To be successful in business, you've just got to take a risk. There's no point in sitting in your comfort zone and thinking, well, I'm happy here because this, I'm in a job where I've got regular income, or, I've got nothing to lose just by getting up and going to work for the man. If you get yourself out of your comfort zone and you think, actually, I need more from life now, I want to create something for myself, I want to give back to the local community, because for myself, a big factor in creating a business was giving back to the local community as well. We support a charity that we support, the Charlie Gard Foundation. Fantastic cause. Obviously, we wanted to give back to those as well. And I also wanted to almost invest in the younger generation as well in Middlesbrough, because Middlesbrough gets a bad rap for the younger generation.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Obviously, I was the younger generation, and I was also tarred with the same brush as everybody else. And I'm not the same. I'm there. I'm trying to create something. And there's so many other people out there who are trying to do the same, but no one will take a chance on them. And that's what I want to do. I want to give back to the local community. But to be successful, make sure that you're dedicated to what it is that you're doing, and you've actually got a cause that you're trying to support. There's no point doing it just because you want to make a load of money, because it doesn't work. People see through it, and people don't buy into that. People buy into people. So just be yourself, be true to what your values are, and just give it a go. And if it doesn't go your way, just keep trying, because the smallest conversation with somebody can make the biggest impact.
I agree with all of them, because I think patience is key. Of course, you're not going to do something and make loads of money immediately. And I think, like you said, well, be true to yourself, because I always believe in work and in industry, there's no point being miserable, because that's exactly why I try to get into this stuff and radio and everything, because it's something I had a big passion for music, I had a big passion for talking to people. It's something I enjoyed, and if I could get that as a job, it makes me happy, and it's something I want to do. And it's sometimes weird, because you think of it as more of enjoyment than a job as well. And I'm sure sort of like you getting into the construction and forming a business in that field was probably your thinking as well, when you thought, I want to do something which I've got a passion for.
Well, that's it for me. If I'm going to put effort into something, I need to see an end result. I'm not the sort of guy who can sit on a laptop filing accounts all day, because at the end of it, you don't get anything out. With construction, you start with just a blank space, and by the end of it, you've actually created something, a physical item. And that's what I need in order to feel like I've accomplished something. So construction was the best business that I could have possibly been in. to go from starting with absolutely nothing to then having an end product. So that's how I get my satisfaction. But different things make different people tick. And if you understand what makes you tick, you would also then understand what makes the market tick, because you're that same person as the rest of the market almost, if that makes sense. So then when you go and do things like ad campaigns, you already know what content you need to be putting out there to make sure that your business is a success from your marketing. So it's just having passion for what you do, I suppose, and making sure that you're committed to it and you're not going to get bored of it in 6 months' time, because success or building a business doesn't happen in 6 months. You're talking like 3 to 5 years by the time you've got a business where it's at a point where you've got a business and you don't just own a job. Because that's another thing which a lot of people don't understand. Just by registering and setting up a business, if you are going to work every single day and you have to be at work to make the business run, you own a job. You don't own a company, or you don't own a business. The business owns you.
Absolutely. And of course, last year you made a big decision, I imagine, to go on The Apprentice, which you, as we speak, you're currently appearing on now, to take your business, Garden Rooms UK, on that. I would ask you, what was the decision in applying? But I imagine it took, of course, to get the 250,000 investment and work with probably one of the UK's most successful businessmen. But of course, I guess as well, if you don't get the investment, I'm a massive fan of the show. It's a show that loads of people watch. And if you do take a business on there, I guess it's going to get a lot of attention as well, isn't it? Because you think about the amount of people that are watching that every Thursday night.
Yeah, so for me, applying for The Apprentice, I will let you into a secret that not many people know. So I actually applied for The Apprentice 3 times. And obviously the third time was third time lucky, you could say. So I've always been a massive, massive fan of the show. And I watched the show from being about 12 or 13 years old. So sitting there watching it and being inspired by these business people, and also by Lord Sugar, obviously, as you've just said, one of the most successful business owners, not just in the UK, but in the world. And you sit and you watch him and you think, he's just a normal guy. He started in a very similar way to I did. So I felt like I could almost relate. You know, he had a little van and he was selling car aerials from the back of his van. It wasn't too long ago that I was selling fridge freezers and washing machines from the back of my van. So you can almost relate. And when you watch the show and you see the type of people that are on there, they're also relatable. You think a lot of these have came from nothing, and they're on there. They're trying to fight it out for an investment because they're trying to grow a business. So this year felt right. This year is the 3rd year that I've been in business, and I wrote a business plan when I first started the company, and the business plan was to see the business grow. And in year 3, I expected to have a massive boom and have a lot of capital in the bank. And as you well know in business isn't straightforward, and your plans sometimes don't go the way that you want. So more than anything, I wanted to go on the show to get some mentorship. It wasn't necessarily about the funds, because even in the business plan that I submitted to the show, we don't spend all the funds to get where we want to be. It's actually quite a small investment in comparison to what's being offered on the show. So it was more to have someone with a little black book of contacts who can just open 100 doors in 30 seconds, because that's literally what type of guy he is. So to get on there, it was more to grow the business. But obviously, as you've just mentioned, you then also get the other benefits from it. You do still then get a following. So you get social media following, you get other doors being opened, because then you're more credible. And even just over the past few weeks, you know, the show's only been on your TV screens now for 4 weeks. And even over the past 4 weeks, when everyone's still new and not known, I've had brands reach out to me. In fact, I've got a box just here next to me where the guys down at Tracer Tools have sent me a box of tools to test. You know, just opportunities like that, which you would never get just by being your normal business owner self.
I've always believed as well, it's in what field you work in, especially some of the things, especially in some industry, it's more who you know than what you know almost. And like if like, because I know like with what I'm in, I've had a lot of that, and it's like sort of if you know somebody that can link you into somebody knows someone, or somebody's got a bit of advice to give you, that's another massive thing, which I'm sure applies with The Apprentice. When you think of course, you've got the 3 people, Lord Sugar, Karen Brady and Tim, who are of course experts, and you've got the other business people who you're fighting with for the investment, but also ally with, because you don't know where they could help you and come in to sort of lead you into something, or they might know somebody that can benefit you.
You've nailed it pretty much there. I think it's not just some industries, it's every industry. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And networking is the biggest way, the best way that I see fit for growing a business. I do a lot of business networking myself, and every Friday morning I'm up 6:30 to go to a business networking event. And the way that I see networking is the more people I can speak to and the more I can take interest in their business, they're going to take interest in my business. So the more people who know about me, they're almost then my sales force without being on the payroll. Because as soon as they speak to somebody else who's identified, I don't know, it might be I'm starting a new business and I'm looking to rent an office space. They put two and two together and go, well, actually, have you spoken to Brad from Garden Rooms? Because he can create you an office space in your back garden for less than it would cost you to rent a room. And that then they've already sold it before you've even spoke to the customer. And it's vice versa. You know, I do know a guy who's in the printing industry. If I know someone who needs a lot of flyers printing, actually, Phil from down at yeah, and everyone that you speak to then acts as your sales force. So networking and obviously knowing people is the best way to grow a business. Obviously at low cost as well. But obviously getting back on what you just said there with the Apprentice, and obviously the more people that you know, again, you pretty much nailed it, because although you're competing in the house with a load of other candidates who are also looking for the investment, those people have all been through the same things as you have as well. You know, they all started small. They're all trying to grow a business and they're all trying to get investment and mentorship. And they've also been through the same problems that you've faced. You know, they've all been through business while COVID hit. So they've all managed to come out the other end of that. And you can have conversations where you think, do you know what? I need some advice on this. I need some advice on that. And even just yesterday, I was chatting with one of the guys and we were just talking about other things, because one of the guys has grown his business and he's doing something really fantastic. And I've got some other plans as well. And it was just getting someone else's take on it and just having people like that. There's nowhere else that I would have met 17 other people, all of the similar age, all in the same boat, which I can ask for advice. There's nowhere else. So for that, it's just invaluable. I would never have got that anywhere else.
So I was going to ask as well, because that leads me on, because I'm going to ask you later on, but I'll say it now. Have you sort of like kept contacts and kept friends with people who you've met on The Apprentice this year?
Oh, listen, everyone who I've met on The Apprentice, every single candidate, they've all got their own different quirk, but we're all exactly the same. It's very strange how they've managed to cast a group of entrepreneurs who've got very similar personalities, but are also so different. It makes no sense, because I can go in there and I could walk into any room, I could sit down on a sofa and I could chat to any of them as if I'd known them for years. So absolutely, we've kept in touch. I speak to pretty much everyone every single day. We've been a little bit naughty. I've been on a holiday with a few of the guys. You know, we were out on nights out for Victoria's birthday just a few weeks ago. So we see each other often and we talk to each other every day.
That's fantastic that you can keep a friendship from, like, because of course it's a serious show as well and you are competing with each other, but it's fantastic that you can keep a friendship and like sort of like, and then you never know, if you need someone's help, they need your help, you can come together. So I think that's excellent.
That's it. I mean, in business, you don't want enemies in business. You want allies. It leads back to, it's not who you know. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You'd never know when you're going to need someone in business, and there's no point in trying to, you know, fall out with anyone, or you're trying to leave anyone at the sidelines, because you're all in the same boat. You're all in it together. Yeah, although the circumstances were difficult, everyone understood each other. We all lived with each other at the end of the day. You know, whatever happened in the boardroom stayed in the boardroom. Nothing got back to the house. And that's same even in the person you've been fighting and arguing with in the boardroom. You'd go into the kitchen and you'd cook each other dinner, and you'd sit and have a cup of tea before you go to bed and stuff. And it was all forgotten about. So yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, the friendships that I've made from there.
I want to touch up a little bit on the time now, about the time on The Apprentice so far. Of course, we can't speak about anything further ahead of when we're talking. But as we speak with 4 tasks in, we've had the Antigua trip, the Bow Buns, which you were project manager, which we'll come to in a minute, the cartoons, and last week was, just got to get it right, the trip to Brighton. And of course, you put yourself down as project manager for the Bow Buns task, which was quite a brave move considering I don't think Bow Buns are something many of us specialise in. So a brave decision, but I remember your reason was you've enjoyed cooking and it's something that you do enjoy on the side of from working in construction. So you put yourself forward. Still a big risk because of course if the team loses, which yours unfortunately did, a lot comes down on the project manager. But how did you find that task as PM?
Oh, well, this is it. I mean, going into week 2 when you don't really know what your other candidates are capable of, and then putting yourself forward as project manager is a decision. I mean, it's not something that I planned. I didn't wake up that morning and they said, right, you're going to create Bow Buns. And I thought, this is me. I'm going to be project manager on this one. What I was conscious of is you start to lose time. The more you start pondering on who's going to be project manager and what your ingredients are going to be and who's going where and how you're going to split your teams, you lose time from your overall task. So I knew that I could get in there. In Antigua, we'd spent a lot of time discussing on the beach of what everyone's strengths were and what everyone's weaknesses were. Obviously, not everything makes it onto the hour episode that you see, but we were sat on that beach for quite some time and we lost a lot of time that we could have been out selling tickets. So as soon as we'd sat around, I thought, one of these guys here must have some sort of catering experience or they've worked in some sort of hospitality or whatever. Everyone just sat. I was like, right, okay, we need to make a decision. I tell you what, by this point, I pretty much know what everyone's good at. So let's just have a go. How hard's going to be? So yeah, I just obviously decided straight away, right, I'll be project manager. If anyone else wants to be, tell me now. Right, okay, no. So this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. Bang, we went round. This is what I want the recipe to be like. Everyone's like, yeah, I agree. Split the teams off. Away you go. So I thought, we've nailed this here. We're out. We've nailed it. There's a lot, obviously, of logistics behind the task that you don't see. It just on TV almost looks like all we have to do is go and make some buns and go and sell them. And that's basically the end of it. Whoever makes the most money wins. But obviously, being in a position where no one's made Bow Buns before, all that you were given was a recipe on a piece of paper with nothing else. So all that it said was what your ingredients were. So like your weights and things. So you're like, right, but how many does that make? So you're trying to figure all this other stuff out. So that was challenging before you've even got down to the fact where you're trying to sell things. Then obviously it comes to the negotiation where the negotiation, it looks like I've gone from £8 all the way down to £3.80 in the matter of a second. That wasn't the case. So there's quite a lot that's missed out in that episode. Those Bow Buns, I'm sat in front of the corporate clients. You don't obviously get a chance to speak to the corporate client before you get in there. So I'm sat down trying to do a fact find of what he's looking for. He gives me very little in return. He won't tell me quantities. He won't tell me his budget.
He wasn't very happy. He wasn't very happy in, was he?
He wasn't very happy, and I wasn't very happy in there because he started touching my buttons, and I thought, I'm here because you've invited us over here. I'm not trying to cold call you and sell you something. You want us here because you want to buy these things. Just help us out and we'll sell you what you need. And he started talking about his business and how he set up the business. And I'm thinking, mate, I'm selling you some buns here. Like, I really don't care about how many junkies you've sold. And so I'm sat with him and I'm thinking, well, what questions can I ask to try and get something back? Sits there, starts doing the maths in my head while I'm talking to him. The same maths, by the way, as the girls really messed up. I'm having the conversation, doing the maths. Right, okay, this is what I can do for you. I can create this recipe. I know in the back of my mind what my cost is. And I'm saying, well, this is what I can charge. By this point, I've created a recipe, got all my figures, and stuck a 400% markup on these buns. So I'm thinking the margin in this here, I've created the cheapest thing that was on the menu. I've got a massive markup on it. I've nailed it. I've absolutely nailed it. Until obviously I found out that the girls had sold theirs for quite a lot more. I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. But it's just a case of you go into the boardroom, you fight your corner, and hopefully, Karen and Tim at this point have seen something in you and they've relayed the information back. But also Lord Sugar's judging you from the minute you walk in the boardroom, before you even spoke. He's looking at your body language, how you act in there, whether you're a bit twitchy or nervous. And you just got to go in there confident, stand your ground. If you're in the wrong, yep, you're in the wrong. Admit it. Don't try and bullshit him because he can see through it. And yeah, fingers crossed you come out the other end. And on this particular occasion, I did.
How intense is it in that boardroom when, of course, this, one of the three who are in there are going to get fired? So how intense is it during that moment?
In the boardroom, you won't understand. So when you go into that boardroom, the scale of the boardroom isn't done justice on the TV. It looks quite small on the TV.
It's huge.
That is the biggest table I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's huge. It is huge. So from walking in there, you've got all the lights and things on you. Lord Sugar himself's obviously sat there. It's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking. You're waiting for what's going to be picked up on this task. What have I messed up on? What have I done right that I can argue that, this is what I've added value to this task. And then obviously going in there as project manager and then losing a task, you fear for the worst. You think, right, that's it.
Yeah.
The time is done. Fortunately, on that occasion, I'm still there, and yeah, I managed to fight my corner. But I said it when I got back to the house. It was probably the worst experience of my life. The boardroom itself, like even the filming of the boardroom, you leave the house. So the boardroom is a day where you manage to get a lie in. So on a task day, you're up at like 4 o'clock, sometimes 3 o'clock. When we went to Brighton, it was like 2 a.m. So you go to bed at 11 o'clock, you're waking up at this time, and you're out all day. So boardroom days, you have a bit of a sleep in, you go and do your boardroom. If you win the task, fantastic. You go straight on to your treat.
And you're off to the cafe if you do.
If you lose the task, you're off to the cafe for another 2 hours. Then you're going back in the waiting area. That waiting area, you're there for, God, what feels like forever.
That must feel like ages.
Wait to be called in. And then when you finally get in there, you're fighting it out. And you don't, from a boardroom day, you don't get back to the house till you're talking 11 o'clock at night. It's all day. It's intense. And there's not a stone that he doesn't turn over to work out what's going on and who's to blame.
Because like you say as well, we're only seeing what is an hour of whole days of filming. So things will be said and done, and things will be recorded which we won't see. But that sounds like a long time. But talking about you in that boardroom, I think from watching the show, one thing that Lord Sugar does respect is sort of when somebody's out of the comfort zone, sort of like what you were for Bow Buns, he still sort of respects the fact if somebody puts themselves forward. Because if you look at, was it the cartoon week, I think it might have been, Gregory never put himself forward for anything. He didn't really contribute, and that's what he didn't like, because it's an attitude thing. And then he got sacked for that, got fired for that. So it's sort of, and like you said it earlier, business is about risk as well, about taking a risk. And I think that's something Lord Sugar must respect when it comes to putting yourself forward for something that's not necessarily your bag.
I mean, business is all about getting out of your comfort zone. If you sit in your comfort zone and you do nothing, nothing's going to come your way. You've got to be adaptable, as Lord Sugar said, and you've got to be able to give 100% on whatever it is that you're faced with. And definitely in the cartoons task wasn't necessarily my forte either. I don't have children. I haven't really been brought up around, looking after children or anything like that. I've never been like Avi, where I've worked in a nursery. So I don't necessarily have the skill set to be able to create a children's cartoon. Yeah. But what I was good at art, and I like drawing and doodling. So all of the visuals that you've seen on the screen, other than the character, all the backdrop was drawn by me. So on the paper, I drew everything out, give it to the designer, and that's where that stuff came from. So if it did come down to it in the boardroom and Lord Sugar said, well, come on, what have you done? You didn't design the character. You didn't do the voiceover. What did you actually do? This is what I contributed, because without the drawings, we wouldn't have had the visuals. So with Greg, he was out of his depth. He was massively out of his depth. But I feel like he was overpowered by a lot of the team as well. The strong candidates in that group. And he didn't want to, I know what Greg's like. Greg didn't want to say something for the sake of saying something. Yeah. He'll only say something if he's adding value. If he's not adding value, he'd rather stay quiet. And I respect that, because you start saying too much and you start looking silly. And that's what he didn't want to do. But, certainly for me in some of the tasks where I know nothing about it. I'll try and give 100%. But in business, you do things which you don't know a lot about. Going back to when I started the business, when a customer said to me, can you take the wall out and put some bifolding doors in? I didn't know what I was doing, but I found a member of the team who did know what they were doing. And that's all you've got to do. Just play your team to the strengths and you'll nail it.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to that risk taking. I'm at the last few questions now, but what one thing is, of course, as we speak, the episode tonight hasn't currently aired, but it's about motorbikes. And on your Instagram, if people follow you, they'll be aware that you've had a big interest in motorbikes. I think since an age of 10, was it? So it's going to be an exciting one for you. So how are you looking forward to that as we speak?
Oh, listen, motorbikes are my absolute passion. Anything motorsports, really. If it's got an engine, you know, if it races around a track or any sort of adrenaline sport like that, I love it. And from being 10 years old, I got a motorbike for Christmas. Me and my younger brother got motorbikes. And that Christmas morning, the feeling that we had when we came down the stairs and we realized we had these bikes was unbelievable. And even still to this day, when I get a chance to go out on the bike and you get yourself on, you put your gear on, and you're out there, it just absolutely clears the mind. You know, you need that little bit of something to take your mind off things at times. And especially in business or especially as a business owner, what people don't understand is as a business owner, the blame stops with you and every problem stops with you. You can have as many people under you as you possibly can, but if they can't deal with it and they can't deal with it and they can't deal with it, it comes to you and you've got to deal with it. And by the time it gets to you, it's a big problem. And sometimes, you know, you can have weeks at work where it's problem after problem after problem, and you need something to clear your head. And for me, it's the motorbikes. You know, you get yourself out on the bike, you get the helmet on, you smell the two-stroke out of the petrol, and you know you're away. And when I found out it was a motorbike task, bearing in mind, obviously, the Apprentice, you're also faced with problem after problem after problem with no escape. So you've got nothing. You know, you haven't got your mobile phone to ring your girlfriend or your friends or anything like that. You're stuck in a house with the people who've also faced the same problems, and morale starts to get down. I didn't have my motorbike to go out and race my bike. But when they'd said to me it was a motorbike task, and I've had quite a rough couple of weeks with obviously losing the bow buns task and feeling like he hadn't really contributed enough in the cartoon task. He said it was bikes. I'm thinking, this couldn't be a better task for me, because there's not a thing that I don't know about motorbikes. And I think this is obviously going to be an interesting one. I can say this because it's been aired. I'm project manager tonight on the motorbike task, which made perfect sense. I try to play my team to the strengths, which is what you should do in any sort of team. But tune in tonight and see how it turns out.
Well, I guess people are going to have to tune in. Fingers crossed for you, Brad. But my final question is going to be, if you're to win the Apprentice and get the 250,000 investment from Lord Sugar, what would you like to develop with Garden Rooms UK?
So Garden Rooms UK, we've already got a business plan in place. We will be going down the manufacturing route. So at the moment, we offer a full design and installation, but we contract out all of the manufacturing side of things, which at the moment is becoming costly. We're living in a climate now where everyone's looking for value for money. So if we can then start to manufacture in-house, we can then spread that cost down to the customer, where the customer saves a few quid as well. I'm also looking to develop a training academy. So the training academy is going to see us do a grow your own almost approach to employment. So almost giving back to the younger generation. So anyone who's interested in working in construction and getting themselves a trade, whether it be joinery, roofing, electrics, groundworks, we are then trying to set up an academy where we can train them to our standards. So that's obviously the next big thing that will be launched. And from there, really, it's just seeing how far we can take it. The dream is obviously to go business to business. If we can go business to business and we can start working with, for argument's sake, residential holiday parks, where we can start building annexes one after another, we're then pretty much set for life. So that's where the business is going anyway, whether Lord Sugar's on the journey or not. You know, that's up to him. But the plan's in place. The cash flow model, as much as I've tried to break it, says that we are going to earn some money from it. Stay tuned, see how it works out for us.
I think it's fantastic business, and I'll be sure to follow the journey. And we'll be throwing our support behind you for the rest of the series, Brad, as I'm sure everybody from this area will. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to chat. You've been a fantastic guest.
No, I absolutely appreciate it. No, thanks very much for having me on again. And, you know, if in the future there's anything else we can do together, keep me in mind. You know, I'm up for anything. I'm up for helping local people. And, you know, you've been a pleasure to talk to today as well. So thanks very much.